frame data is a bit of an F word to many players. Even at a higher level sometimes, it's by far the most intimidating part of learning a fighting game for a lot of people because it's always seen to be this highly complicated and impossibly numbers-driven ordeal that you simply need a master's degree to even understand. In this latest episode of From Casual to Competitive, I want to go over the beginner science of what frame data is and how to put it into practice. There are some parts of the game that are greatly assisted by a basic understanding of how frame data works, so try to keep up and I'll get started. If this is your first time watching this series, I suggest that you watch the other 2 episodes first. I'll link them in the description. Frame data is a game of numbers, and understanding that the game runs at 60 frames per second. The numbers that you see represents the time it takes for attacks to play out in their variety of different ways. To start with, you access a character's frame data in the move list. On any move, look to the right and there it is. Before we talk about anything meta-related, let me give you the too long didn't read version of each section. Startup frames is how long it takes for an attack to actually come out. Using Geras' standing 1 as an example, it takes 7 frames for the standing 1 to become active. When talking about move speeds, the smaller the number, the faster the attack, and for reference, the fastest button in Mortal Kombat across the board tends to be 6 frames, and attacks this fast often belongs to standing jabs or low pokes such as a down 1. Geras' down 1 is 6 frames, which is why in a real match it feels so insanely fast. Active frames are next, and they are the amount of frames an attack is able to connect with the opponent after it's started. This standing 1 is active for 2 frames. Recovery is how long an attack takes to finish its animation after the active frames have run out. The term recovery is because during this time, your attack is recovering from the attacking state. Recovery is important because during recovery frames, you're vulnerable and can't block. This is why it's possible to get whiff punished when you stick out a button at a bad range and get caught in the recovery. Hit advantage is when the attack has connected and signifies how long the opponent is stuck in place after getting hit by the attack. When talking about hit or block advantage though, look for either the number standalone or if there's a minus symbol next to it. In this example, Geras' standing 1 is 16, which actually means plus 16 if we're talking about hit or block advantage, as there's no minus symbol next to it. This standing 1 being plus 16 on hit means that for 16 frames, Geras can move before the opponent can. An easy way to test this is to get hit by the move yourself and just hold up. If both players hold up after this connects, look at how early Geras can move before we can. On the opposite end, some attacks can be minus on hit. Geras' forward 2-1 is minus 5, which actually means that when this string hits the opponent, they can move 5 frames before we can. Pay attention to these values when building your offense. They matter a great deal, and I'll explain why soon. Block advantage is what your button is after the attack has been blocked. It's usually minus in some way. As you can see, Geras' standing 1 is minus 3, down 1 is minus 4. Neither of these are vulnerable to a free hit, as no attack in the game is 3 or 4 frames, but it's still significant for other reasons. Flawless block advantage is when an attack has the ability to give different frame data if the opponent flawless blocks it. This doesn't apply to every attack in the game, but a simple example is Jade's back 3-4-3-4. The string by itself is plus 5 on block, which means that she actually gets to pressure you after with a fast button, because she can move for 5 frames before you can. However, if you flawless block the final hit, this string becomes minus 10 and fully punishable. That's the quick rundown of what the different categories mean, but now I want to tell you how to put some of it into practice. Using frame data, we can better understand what moves are punishable and which ones aren't, but what is a punish? A punish is when the opponent uses an attack on block that's negative enough where you get to attack them for free before they can recover. Let's use Scorpion's teleport as an example. It's always been one of his most classic moves that players like to use on block. Teleport is -20 on block. It's actually very unsafe for one simple reason. Looking at punishes for moves is often started by exploring the attacks that you already use for combos. As a Scorpion player, we can start combos off standing 4, 1-1 or 2-1. All of these can cancel into teleport or spear. To see if we can punish the teleport, look at the startup frames of the first hit in a combo string. In Scorpion's case, the startup of standing 1, standing 2, and standing 4. Standing 1 is 7 frames, standing 2 is 9 frames, and standing 4 is 11 frames. Because the teleport is -20, all 3 of these attacks will punish the teleport in time and with a generous amount of leeway at that. The basic method of exploring punishes is to look at the move you're trying to block, compare the minus frames of it with the startup frames of your own attacks, and see which attacks will fit into that time frame. One note to remember is that you have to factor in the act of coming out of a block and able to press buttons, so a -8 move might not be punishable by an 8 frame button with that in mind. Explore in training mode and find out what works. The reversal mechanic makes the act of punishing much easier, but it's tied to special moves and grabs. I mentioned how you still need to release block to be able to punish an attack which uses up a tiny amount of frames. This isn't the case for the reversal mechanic. You can input a special move out of block stun, and the game will give you the special on the first available frame, making specific punishes much easier and for less execution. This act is called a reversal. If the reversal punishes, that's why it's called a reversal punish. Using Noob Saibot's back 1/1+3 as the example, it's one of his strongest mids, but -17 on block. It does sport a large amount of pushback, which is why it can be tricky to punish. We can punish this with Sub-Zero's back 1, but it's range dependent, and as back 1 is 14 frames, it can be tricky to squeeze in. If we instead input Sub-Zero's slide or cold shoulder out of the block stun, it will come out as fast as possible and punish this string at most ranges, even though the cold shoulder is technically slower with a 16 frame startup. The reversal mechanic gives it to us at the fastest possible time, which makes it a far more consistent punish in this and many other scenarios. Knowing when it's your turn to press buttons up close is very important in MK11. This is one of the most important immediate uses for frame data, and understanding what I call the poke battle. We've all been in a situation where we land a hit and the opponent just mashes down 1. It seems like there's nothing that we can do, but there is, and frame data is the key to understanding it. I'm going to use Jax for this one because his down 1 is so strong and his buttons so fast that he's definitely one of the main characters that players like to challenge stuff with. His down 1 is 7 frames, but it's +13 on hit. With a 9 frame forward 3 which hits mid, it's a common occurrence that he challenges your offense with a down 1 and instantly checks you with his forward 3 when you try and challenge him back. The first thing to know about when this happens is that these challenges take place when an attack of yours has just ended, be it one of your single attacks or a combo string. The opponent is simply taking their turn and using a fast poke to try and strong-arm some plus frames into their own offense, hence the down 1 being a fast button with a lot of hit advantage. Secondly, down 1s tend to crush high attacks, which is why even if you block a down 1, you sometimes get hit by their second down 1. Even if you got your attack out first after blocking, notice here that Kabal's standing 1 comes out first, but because it's a high, it's going over Jax's head and I get hit by down 1. You have to use the right attack type here. We want something that will hit a crouched opponent in this situation. The most useful button that you can press is a mid, because it hits crouched opponents. Kabal can challenge with his forward 4, as it is indeed a mid, but that's not the only reason that this is the button to beat it. To understand what your options are in this exchange, we have to look at both the frame data of the blocked down 1, and after that, the frame data on his popular other options. I'll do it live so you can follow along.
Too slow.
Jax's down 1 is 7 frames on startup. When blocked, its block advantage is -4. Factoring in the 4 frames that Jax loses on block and then tries to do another down 1, that gives roughly 11 frames to beat the next down 1 that's coming after. If that's his choice, Kabal's forward 4 is 9 frames on startup, which means that we can block Jax's down 1, put him at -4. The 4 frames he's missing out on allows us to beat the next down 1 with our mid-hitting forward 4, as it's 9 frames and beats crouching opponents so it can't be ducked under like a high could. If we did my forward 4 and his down 1 simultaneously, he would always outspeed us. It's the fact that we blocked his down 1 first and caused him to lose 4 frames that allows our forward 4 to win the exchange. I know this was pretty complicated, but trust me, taking your turn is often best when the opponent has just had their button blocked. They're usually minus, and you should be able to outspeed them with your next attack if they try to constantly press buttons. Frame traps are popular if a character has them. Moves that are so plus on block or hit that the opponent has to respect your options, otherwise they'll simply get hit for trying. On block, Sub-Zero's forward 4 is +4 on block. Because his down 1 is 6 frames, there is no button the opponent can press after blocking the forward 4 that will outspeed the down 1, because they're stuck for 4 frames while his down 1 has already begun to come out. Forward 4 into down 1 with Sub-Zero is an example of a frame trap and must be respected. On hit, this is where Sub-Zero's crazy 50-50 shines the strongest, especially when he's got Fatal Blow. The reason this mix-up works so well is because after the jump 2, Sub-Zero is so plus on hit that you can't press anything to get out before the low or overhead connect. Because you can't press buttons, you're forced into the complete 50-50, which makes life a lot more miserable if he has Fatal Blow to finish you off. This is one of the scarier mix-ups in the entire game, and makes good use of Sub-Zero's plus frames off a jump-in. I'm mashing every button imaginable here, and nothing is working in the example I'm showing. A slightly more complicated episode this time round, hence the slight delay in releasing it, but frame data really is one of the most crucial things that you can learn if you're looking to take your MK11 game to the next level. As always, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in our next video. Take care.